CNN has announced that they are putting an end to the overuse of breaking news in their reporting, while also putting an end to progressive commentary, which we will discuss that later. First, on the breaking news point here, which I find to be rather interesting. So, this from Axios. CNN's new boss, Chris Licht, says that beginning today, CNN has added a breaking news guideline to its style book to address overuse of the breaking news banner across its network and cable news writ large. Quote, "We are truth tellers focused on informing, not alarming our viewers," he said in that note obtained by Axios. "You've already seen far less of the breaking news banner across our programming." So, this I find to be an obvious step in the right direction. Maybe the only step here in the right direction that CNN is taking from this news story. Again, I'll get to more on what else they're doing later, but a bit more here. So Lick said he agrees with complaints from people both inside and outside the organization that the network overuses the breaking news banner. Quote, "It has become such a fixture on every channel and network that its impact has become lost on the audience. To address the issue, CNN Bureau Chief Sam Feist has led a team in building out breaking news guidelines for CNN Style Book per the note. It certainly will need tweaks, so we are open to feedback, but this is a great starting point to try to make breaking news mean something. Big is happening," Licht wrote. Okay, so this is good. Just to give you an example of how far, at least at one point, CNN got with using the breaking news banner. This is from 2014, so things have definitely changed since then a little bit. But from Business Insider here, their headline, CNN used a breaking news banner on the sinking of the Titanic. And they are not joking. What's amazing about this is that it was used for the 102nd anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. Now, look at this banner. Titanic's breaking news. Titanic sunk 102 years ago tonight. Like, it's one thing if it was even 100 years ago. It's the 100th anniversary. It's still not worthy of breaking news, but 102-year anniversary? There's no meaning there, but somehow breaking news. Now, clearly, this is the most egregious example, I think, but what they're doing now, a step in the right direction. I think it's important to save the breaking news banner, that sort of actual breaking news, save it for what is actually breaking news, something big happening, something that just hit, some big event. That makes a lot more sense than overusing it for every single thing. Now, here's where we get to the insanity in CNN's strategy. So, also written here by Axios, Zaslav and mentor and investor John Malone have been public about their push to bring CNN back towards hard news coverage and away from progressive commentary. Progressive commentary. Before I address this absurdity, if they are actually honest in their fight here to push for hard news coverage, actual objective, not neutral, objective reporting, as in objective to the facts, what is actually going on, then good. That is something that CNN should be moving towards. We're going to see what this actually means if it's actually implemented, but from the sounds of it, just based on this alone, hard news coverage, that would be a good thing. But when you combine it with away from progressive commentary, what do you mean, progressive commentary? Now, if you want to say that CNN is, and I'm going to show you some examples here of how they're not progressive, but if you mean that CNN is maybe more socially liberal, recognizes that trans people exist because that is objective fact, recognizes that the majority of Americans support abortion rights, even though in the same sentence they will say, well, it may not be as high as you think it is. If you think that's progressive, then I guess sure, CNN, progressive CNN for recognizing that trans people exist. But like what, in terms of CNN's commentary, how have they actually been progressive? Because whenever you see them discuss issues of poverty, of wages, of taxes, of even climate change, it pushes a very forced neutrality message that always benefits the status quo and massive corporations. And to give you some examples of that here, I mean, you can really search any issue that is a progressive issue and look up that issue and CNN and see how they have covered it. So, a few examples: $15 an hour minimum wage, according to CNN Business, would hurt those it's meant to help. And also on that point, they have CNN Business. Is there CNN working class? CNN unions? No, there's CNN Business. Showing you, again, this is a conservative position. Economically conservative. Don't raise wages. It's going to hurt people it's meant to help. And of course, this is all bullshit. From a business perspective, they are trying to convince people that actually you getting more money is going to hurt you. But this is what they do. Another example here. Jake Tapper, if you remember back in, I guess, 2018, there was a fact check on Medicare for All from Jake Tapper. A fact check that was completely wrong. That was counterfactual. So paste here how Jake Tapper and the mainstream media got played by Koch brothers think tank. In the Medicare for All debate, Tapper opts for a pointless wrong fact check. In fact, it was so bad that Jake Tapper actually came out and admitted that at least a part of what he said was wrong. He wouldn't admit that the entire segment was bullshit, but he came out to admit that, yeah, this part of the commentary was, objectively wrong. But this is what they do. Even when the facts, and I shouldn't say even, the facts are never on their side when it comes to these sorts of economic issues. But they have to use a Koch-backed study, which in and of itself actually showed Medicare for All saves money, but they took the Koch top line from that to push this message, this idea that actually Medicare for All is going to hurt society, even though you look at every single developed nation around the world and they have some form of universal health care. In Canada, single-payer health care, like a Medicare for All system, it costs less, it covers everybody. These are all things that people outside of the U.S. understand, already know, but still CNN pushing a pro-corporate, medical business message here that benefits insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. This example as well. CNN host seemingly compares Bernie Sanders' campaign to coronavirus. Can either coronavirus or Bernie Sanders be stopped? Another example of CNN's very progressive coverage here. And in terms of hires, just think to yourself, who have they hired from, I don't know, an actual progressive outlet, maybe like the Young Turks or Democracy Now? Have they hired anybody from there? No. In terms of campaigns, Bernie Sanders campaign, Nina Turner was a occasional guest on some roundtables on Sundays and occasionally throughout the week. But that lasted, a few months. I don't think she's there anymore. Apart from that, there really has been no hires from any sort of progressive campaign or progressive network. Meanwhile, they hired freaking Chris Wallace from Fox News, which sure, you can say, I guess he's the closest to news that Fox News had. But still, here's a Fox News guy being hired by CNN. Also, CNN hires GOP operative with no journalism experience to coordinate its 2020 coverage. There was so much backlash on this that they actually had to downgrade her position to a commentator position. But again, showing you what they favor. And by the way, it's not even really about favoring the right. It's about favoring the status quo, favoring the establishment who has power already, corporate interests. That's what it's about. So yes, there are certain people that CNN, I don't think, would ever hire at this point. Back in the day, they even hired people like Jeffrey Lord. But nowadays, there are people like, I don't think they would hire anybody that worked closely with Trump on his campaign. At this point, 5 years ago, I think they would have. Nowadays, I don't think they would. But here's an example, again, of CNN hiring a GOP operative. They hire Jason Miller back in the day, again, showing you the kind of people they were willing to hire, the kinds of lunatics like a Miller, who was very close to Trump. They also hired Sean Duffy, again, showing you this is a Trump loyalist, former GOP congressman. And they also hired Alyssa Farah, another Trump administration official. So, and this is more recent, last year, late last year. So these are not progressives. Anybody that was hired here did not offer progressive commentary. But even apart from that, yeah, CNN hires Democratic operatives, exact same thing. They aren't pushing a working class message, a need for Medicare for all, to raise wages, to actually address the climate crisis with a serious plan. None of that. These are people that prop up the status quo, that prop up corporate interests, whether they're Democratic operatives or GOP operatives. It's the exact same message. This idea that CNN is somehow progressive is absolutely ridiculous. If they think they're progressive, I want to see what a non-progressive CNN looks like. Like, what is the commentary going to turn into if they think that the current CNN is progressive? So while this idea of, moving away from breaking news, or at least the overuse of it, and moving towards hard news, on the face of it sounds like a good idea, we have to see what this actually means when they implement these plans.